And welcome everybody to the Bangers and Classics podcast. That's with me, James Rupper, and him, David Malloy. And what have you been up to, David?
Good question. If I, I think if it was an exam, I'd probably fail this one because I can't actually say it. I've been up to various things that are completely and utterly unproductive.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm afraid to say so, yeah. Not really anything car-related in the last few days. Haven't even really seen any interesting cars. I think I saw one, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
I thought, there's an interesting car, I must remember that, and promptly forgot.
All right.
But I imagine you'll make up for it with a connoisseur selection.
Well, yeah, I've been out and about, David. I've probably got too many to mention, so I might as well save some up. But I was doing some dusk classic car driving, which I can highly recommend. I know we all like to go out in the sunshine and stuff, but actually, the best time of all to go out is actually when it's dark, because there are less of the other cars around. There's a lot more space for you. At the moment, the weather's quite nice, so you can have the windows wide open, your air conditioning on, effectively, and yeah, you can just enjoy yourself. I saw some good sights. There was an Auntie Rover. I think it was like a 90, but it was a customized one because it was very bonnet forward, so it had some big wheels at the back. Couldn't see it in a lot of detail, but it was coming towards me and went past, and that was quite exciting. I'd like to know a bit more about that. Yesterday I was out and about, and there was a lot of caravans, and of course we adore caravans on Bangers and Classics. And they were obviously returning from a weekend away because I was on the main A47. But one fascinating one, there was a Kia something or other. I have no idea what Kias are these days, but it was towing, or it was attached to a transporter back end of a VW. So it was quite odd to see that. I presume the front end had broken down or broken off. So they thought, well, we'll take the reliable Kia. So that was quite interesting. And I was overtaken by a GTV convertible on one of my dusk raids, and I'm sure you would appreciate that.
You mean the Spider, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, would it be the Twin Spark
I have
or
no
would it be
idea.
the Pibiso?
I don't
Well,
know.
how does it?
I
You know
can't
about it.
hear when I'm inside with my A series Mini. It's like being trapped in a
Oh
tin
no.
with
If it,
with loads of wasps. So I have no idea what went past me.
no. If it had a Busso engine, my
Yeah.
boy, you would have known.
Oh, I don't know
Yeah.
about that. No.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
trust me. Yeah, you could hear my old Busso in the next county. I think we're possibly playing music. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe some All Saints or something, James.
Well, that's never going to happen. And today, Dave, before speaking to you when I was out and about, a proper Beetle. When I say proper Beetle, a lot of the Beetles you see are quite recent Beetles. You know, they're like 70s Beetles, aren't they? And this was a left-hand drive, very scruffy, and it was an E-plate, so it was a bang smack in the middle of cool Beetle era. And I actually took a rear end picture of that, and I'll send you that later to prove that I saw it. And that was quite a refreshing thing to see, actually. So, but not over restored at all. It was a pretty faded paintwork, and looked it'd been cobbled together, but it was good. So So apart from lots of other things, I could well bore you with. I won't do, but quite a good haul recently.
Sounds it. Yeah, I do remember now the car I saw.
All right.
I've seen it a couple of times lately. I saw it last year as well and possibly mentioned it. It's a Vauxhall Cresta.
Right.
And it's in very, very good condition. It tends to be seen for some reason around a certain filling station down there where the boat's kept.
Yeah. So what
Yeah.
era Cresta is this then?
This would be a 60s.
Right. So that'd be
I
square
think
one.
yeah, it's a PB, I think, square one. But it's very nice condition. It really is. It's a very, very well kept car indeed. Coachwork is gleaming, James, gleaming, I tell you.
Fantastic.
There's something else that's 60s related we need to talk about, and that's the sad passing of Paddy Hobkirk.
Absolutely. No, that was not very good news to hear on a Friday evening when I heard it. Sort of one of the heroes of my youth. I was very, very lucky to meet him once. It wasn't on a job. It wasn't an interview. We just happened to be in the same place, and it was just me and him. And I shook his hand, and I think we talked nonsense. I don't remember saying anything particularly relevant. I'm sure he got fed up of people saying how wonderful he thought he was, but he was such a nice chap. He didn't know me from Adam, but he talked to me. He smiled a lot, and we said goodbye. And he was just lovely. And every single thing I've ever read about him, ever seen about him, just said that he was just a lovely, lovely bloke. And yeah, that's what I saw. But he's one of those things. He was a very talented driver, as we know, but also, David, as we've mentioned before, you had to, as well as being driving, you had to earn a living because just driving cars didn't pay the rent. You had to do other stuff, and he was a very clever businessman. And if you bought stuff in the 60s, it was quite often a Moss product, wasn't it? He had a massive range of things, and there you go. He was able to do several things. He was a very good businessman, a very good driver, and a wonderful personality. And I don't think he disappointed in any way, shape, or form. So we are very sorry to hear that he's gone, but that's a life well lived.
Indeed, yeah. To put his achievements into perspective as a rally driver, he's best known for winning the 1964 Monte Carlo Rally, but he also won the Circuit of Ireland multiple times,
Yep.
the Alpine Rally a couple of times, and the Acropolis Rally,
Yeah.
amongst others, and the London to Sydney Rally in 1968. He was given the chance of winning.
Yeah.
The leader had a head-on crash with a civilian's car, you want to put it that way, a spectator's car.
Yeah.
That was in the wrong area, and Hopkirk and his co-driver pulled over and pulled the crew of the it was a Citroen DS that was leading the rally. He pulled them out of a burning car, possibly saving their lives. Then drove back to warn other onlookers and the police, which meant he forfeited any chance he had of winning the rally.
Yeah.
I think that's worthy of mention as well. It's
It
something
is,
that's perhaps not so well known about Paddy. You say about his business acumen. Well, if you remember, Paddy Hopkirk accessories, James, were everywhere at one time.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, you go into Motor Factors and it was Paddy Hopkirk this and Paddy Hopkirk that, Paddy Hopkirk rally jackets. He also apparently imported Toyotas to Northern Ireland and had a driving school. A very busy man, very active man. And there's one of his cars certainly was up here a few years ago. There was a chap bought one of his rally minis, one of the Monte cars.
Yep.
Wasn't the one he won the rally in. I think he was fifth in this one. But I have some photographs of it somewhere that I took. I'll try and dig one of those out and stick it on the Twitter page. As you said, James, sad to see him go. He's a man who achieved a great deal. He'll be missed by many.
Yeah.
So, moving on to this week's Banger Classic.
All right.
After the controversy of last week, even though I was right and you were wrong,
really?
I don't think you've forgiven me for that yet, if you ever will. I mean, it was so close to being curtains for bangers and classics, wasn't it, James?
Well, I don't know about that.
I think it was. I think you were. Oh, you don't remember? You stormed off in a cream puff.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Amateurs, you shouted, rank amateurs. Get me out of here. On the phone to your agent straight away.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah. Anyway, this week's Banger Classic is a hatchback. It's a term coined by Gavin Braithwaite-Smith, who we've mentioned in the podcast a few times. And it is the Ford Sierra Sapphire. Now, I've got a view on this, James, but I want to know, first of all, what yours is. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a Sierra with a boot, isn't it, really?
Yes.
And everybody remembers, and when I used to do lots of work for Ford magazines, even back in the day, everyone was terribly excited by the Cosworth versions. And yeah, you either thought they were great or you didn't. But yeah, they were interesting vehicles, probably better than the Sierra version. They did look very smart, I must say. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of hard to get overexcited by it, but it was a good Reps car, and obviously that was the car that Reps preferred because you could lock the boot and you couldn't see what was inside, so that was always the preferred mode of transport. Yeah, it was it did a job. It was a good fleet car, and that's it really. But yeah, the RS Cosworth was the one that everybody wanted, and they've always been sort of extremely well priced. It's been very difficult to buy ones that haven't been stolen and recovered several times, and they do go for an awful lot of money now, which is on occasions a bit difficult to fathom. But there you go. But I thought it looked good. I thought it was better than the Sierra in many ways. So
Yeah, I mean,
there you go. But you may think differently. So.
well, Sierra came along in 1982, James.
Mm,
It didn't bring out Sapphire until 1987.
that's correct. Yes,
That's crazy, really, when you think about
it
it.
is, isn't it?
As I understand it, Ford brought out the Orion to fill the gap for a 3-box saloon,
Mm,
the booted version of the Escort, but of course it was much smaller, and people wanted a bigger version, so they ended up bringing out the Sapphire.
yeah.
Not being a fan of 3-box saloons, that left me completely cold. I have to say, I just never really liked it. I didn't really like the styling of the Sierra much, and the Sapphire I just thought was terminally dull, looks-wise. Comfortable cars, roomy cars, good enough cars to drive. All those boxes ticked. Did a job, box ticked as well. Good range of engines, but you couldn't, unlike the Sierra, get a 1.3 version.
No, that's right.
No, it started at 1.6.
Mm.
And of course, you had the RS Cosworth and the Cosworth 4x4. I wasn't a fan. I won't even go into why not, because I'll probably offend some people. I'm going to try not to do that this week. But I'm going to try not to. I will not succeed. We all know this.
Well, that's what the GTI Owners Club said to me, David, but there you go.
Yeah, that was last week. I offended them last week.
Yeah.
There's time yet this week, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, of course there is. It wasn't a technically advanced car,
No.
the Sierra nor the Sapphire. It was really a Katina in effectively a more aerodynamic package. And it departed from the Katina by being such a radical looking car. It was based, or the styling was introduced by the Probe 3 concept. And I think that was the idea behind the Probe 3, was to break the styling to the public before the Sierra came out so they get used to it. Sapphire was a little bit more conventional, obviously, than the Sierra in terms of looks, but it just looked dull. Where the Sierra looked like a jelly mold, the Sapphire just looked a bit, meh, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was replaced, of course, by the front-wheel drive Mundano in 1993, a car beloved of certain Tony Blair, and that's reason enough to dislike it for me. Not liking any politicians, I hasten to add. It was a bit more advanced in terms of specification, though. But as for the Sierra Sapphire, well, as I said, it's dull, not technically interesting, good at what it did. I'll give it that much, and that's quite a big thing. But I'm still going to say it's a banger. But I'm going to introduce a new category, James.
All right. Yep.
I'm going to call it a good banger.
Oh, okay.
Right? I think that's the fairest I can be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to buy one or have one, but I recognise its ability. Maybe that's the fairest drive for me.
Yeah.
Oh, to hell with that. It's just a banger and be done with it, David. Right. Any comeback in that, or should we take a break?
No, not really. No. Let's go and have a cup of tea.
Bangers and classics, the motoring podcast you can count upon. Who writes this rubbish?
And we are back after the break, and we're going to dive into this week's challenge. It's a very, very simple challenge.
Mm.
I say that all the time, and Mr. Ruppert proves me wrong continually.
Yeah.
This week's challenge is to buy a niche hot hatch. It must have an MOT or equivalent. Cost £8,000 or less. There's bonus points for rarity, performance, and general eccentricity.
Right.
Now, I'm going to tell you what I didn't buy now. I find out what you bought.
Oh, okay.
I thought, first of all, good to go for here. It's the Deploy School of Motoring. We are choosing the Citroen Visa GTI.
All right.
Great idea, I thought. Try and find one in the UK. Nah,
Okay.
not possible. Not for sale anyway. I did look on the continent. They were mostly over budget, so I didn't go for that. Before we find out what you got, James,
Yeah.
this is about the fourth take. This is about the fourth take of this one.
Well, that's easy for you to say, David.
Clearly not. Clearly not. I noticed in the ads that there's an Innocenti 90 hatchback for sale in Norfolk in Car and Classic.
Is there really?
That is 1981.
Oh,
I
right.
first thought, it's not James's, is it? And of course it isn't.
No, it's not. No.
It is red, but it's a different shade of red to yours.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So no doubt you will rush off to check that out, and you could buy a companion for it. You could have two.
I could do, couldn't I?
Yeah, you could loan me one. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll look after it for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Apparently they're good at handbrake turns, but never mind.
Okay.
Anyway, so that established, what did you get, James?
Well, David, I skip read your emails, David, because they're very complicated and you go off on various tangents. And all I saw was niche hatchback. Hot hatch. I didn't see hot hatch at all. I just saw niche. So I just thought, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I can do a niche. Yeah, I've got something that will. Maybe I've sort of deliberately tried to goad you as well with this.
No,
Um,
surely
but
not.
what I could have done, I don't know. Let's see if I've still got it lying around. I haven't. I've obviously deleted it from what I usually look at, but it doesn't matter. It's a Nissan PAL, and basically that's a Nissan Micra with a 2CV sort of panel style bodywork. I don't know if you've ever come across one of those.
Thankfully not.
No, but yeah, I
I've
thought
probably
you.
seen a picture, but yeah,
Yeah,
I probably averted my gaze and
yeah,
eradicated it from my mind as soon as I possibly could, James.
yeah. No, it looks. No, they're fantastic looking things, and yeah, I thought that was very niche. It was quite cheap as well, even though I've deleted the advert. But it was, yeah, it was about sort of £5,000, 6,000, maybe a bit less, and that was on eBay. Um, yeah, that was, yeah, I could have bought that now. Although I'd still probably rather buy another Innocenti, but no, um, Nissan Pal people, yeah, go if you've never seen one, go and look it up. It's an interesting looking Micra. Um, Sort of industrial, as I say, 2CV type vehicle. And I thought niche. There's a handful over here. You do see them very occasionally in fashionable parts of the UK. Obviously, not where me or David live. And there you go. That's my entrant, which is not very hot hatch unless you
No,
set it alight, really. But there you go.
don't give me ideas, James. For
No.
pity's sake, I just googled a picture of one.
Yeah,
What is he on about now? What are you doing?
yeah, that's all right, isn't it?
Um, yeah, okay, fine,
Yeah,
fine.
there you
My
go.
wife came. I got in trouble from the wife last week for being rude to you. Apparently,
Well, that's okay. That's part of the
yeah,
course. But
you were very rude to James. I heard that.
yeah,
Yeah, so I was just rude to her instead. Then, so that makes it up.
right.
serves her right. She can't hear me. She's doing something else at the moment, thankfully. But we've now been joined by one of the dogs as well. So we've now got a
Oh,
cat and
good.
a dog in this room.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're both sound asleep. It must be me that's doing it, James. It must be me. I'm sure it's not you.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, they're more entertaining than we are.
Well, maybe not as entertaining as what I chose as a niche hot hatchback,
Which was?
which is, well, give you a clue. It's a bread van with a turbocharger,
All right. Well, that could be anything.
a truncated backside, you
Yeah.
might say. It was sold under two different mark names.
All right.
Yeah, you got to get this, James. You're the expert in such matters.
Am I? I don't know whether I am. That's a bit too obscure for me.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
a Lancia Y10 Turbo, or if you prefer, it's an Otto Bianchi Y10
Oh, yeah.
Turbo. Yeah,
Fantastic.
the one I found isn't local. It's
Yeah.
in Athens. I
All
couldn't
right.
find any in the UK. In
No.
fact, none on the road at the moment, and there are only 15 on Sorn.
Hmm.
It's done a fair bit of miles, this one. It's quite leggy, as the trade would say. 124,000 miles, which is about 199,000 kilometres.
Yeah.
It's grey. It's reportedly rust-free and drives well.
Hmm.
Could do with a little bit of TLC here and there, especially on the inside. The seats have been replaced with leather seats, but the originals are available except for the drivers, because originally it was Alcantara seats.
Oh, really?
So you'll get two back seats, two passenger seats, and one driver seat. That's
Yeah.
with the car. Engine size, well, all important to hot hatch. It's tiny. It's a 1049cc turbocharged engine, which produces all of 85 brake horsepower. But the car is small, weighs practically nothing, and it'll do 108 miles an hour. When tested by Motor Magazine in 1985,
Hmm.
it covered a 0 to 60 sprint in 10.2 seconds. And it grips well, apparently. I've
Yeah.
never driven one, but
Hmm.
the ride is, shall we say, interesting.
Yeah.
Also very good for parking, just being slightly under 12 foot 2 in length. Don't ask me what that is in meters, because I couldn't care anyway.
No.
I'm not interested in meters. So yeah, I would say that's niche or what, James, eh?
Yeah,
That
that's
is
quite
niche or
niche,
what?
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's right. Yeah. I was writing something about the Y10 the other day, actually, because again, that's one of those disappeared
Mm.
vehicles.
I remember them back in the day. I remember seeing them. Never wanted one, but I kind of liked them from afar.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way of putting it. So yeah, so I think I win that by default, since you didn't even go for a hot hatch.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think the Nissan Power has quite a lot of appeal myself, but there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, so
we
does
always let the listeners decide.
the Great Chain Rob has a lot of appeals too, James.
Yeah,
Um, anyway, there we go. So, what else have we got for this week? I've been making repeated visits to the danger zone with some of my comments lately, apparently.
oh
Yeah, apparently so, James. But
yeah,
it's time for the podcast as a whole. So, one,
yeah,
we're going to the danger zone and find a danger mobile.
yeah,
And I think we found quite a good one this week.
mm,
It's an Alfa Romeo 75.
yeah,
And sadly, James, there were only 57 on the road in the UK as at the last report.
yeah,
304 in Soren. And the 75 is a seminal model for Alfa Romeo.
mm,
It was the last Alfa to go into production before Fiat's takeover. I know the 164 was developed before Fiat took over, but the 75 was the last to go into production. So it's an important model in Alfa Romeo's history.
yeah.
So I'll ask you, what did you think of the 75? And can you give any reasons why they should be preserved?
Well, I suppose because it's not German is mainly the reason. Very interesting cars, yeah, historically for several reasons. But the thing is, people always have a go um, about interiors of cars, and I tell you, it's extremely important if you're selling cars because if you sit inside a 75, it really is a mess. It's it's a terrible mess. Whereas if you sit inside a German car of a similar vintage, and we all know what they are from the 80s, um, everything falls smartly to hand, is well built and well finished. But it's a bit of a challenge inside a 75. But then you don't buy the 75 for what's inside and what isn't, which includes a very odd shaped handbrake lever, which would confuse most people and certainly confused me. Um, but yeah, you bought it because there were quite nice engines, twin spark and the V6, and the gearbox was up the back, which was very unusual still. So it was a very sporting 50-50 balanced layout. So that's why you had one really, and you had it because it was an Alpha really. You didn't buy a boring German car like everybody else. I suppose the great thing about Alphas of that era, and to a certain extent today, is that you can identify a car enthusiast by their possession of one. And yeah, so instead of buying a 5 Series or a Mercedes, buying an Alpha 75 sort of marked you out as an individual, and long may that continue. So yeah, it's very very sad that there's just effectively a handful left. Again, it's yet another car which you do not see at all anywhere. But at least the last ones are probably with enthusiasts, and yeah, it's just a shame there's so many Sawn ones. I should think bringing those back to life is not the easiest or cheapest thing to do, but yeah, 75 sadly missed.
Yeah, I suspect that the cost of restoring them is the big thing, James.
Yeah, it is.
That's probably it. They only ever built it as a four-door saloon, but they did show a prototype of an estate. But apparently Fiat nixed the idea. I said, no, we're not doing that. And you mentioned it as a transaxle. Well, yeah, absolutely. For also the de Jong rear suspension. And again, you've mentioned this. I did both the twin spark and the absolutely glorious Busso engine. But you could have the Busso at certain points in either the 2.5 litre or the 3 litre flavours.
Yeah.
2.5 litre probably is a slightly better revving engine. 3 litres got more power, but they both sound absolutely fantastic. No German car ever sounded that good, ever. Simple as that. And I've had a couple of German cars with 6-cylinder engines. Nice engines, very smooth, creamy smooth, etc., etc. But they don't stir the soul like an Alfa Romeo V6. Not even close. Did have some racing pedigree, James.
Yeah, they were. They were saloon car racing items, weren't they?
Yeah, won the Italian Super Turismo Championship in 1988 with a guy who drove briefly in Formula One for possibly one of the worst teams ever, Gianfranco Brancatelli. And another driver took it to second in 91. They did race in the first and only at the time anyway, World Touring Car Championship that was riddled with politics and all sorts of goings on that series, and Alfa pulled out very quickly. And the series, in fact, stopped at the end of the year. That would be, I think, probably about 20 years before it started the World Touring Car Championship again. it's a historically important car because it is the last. You might call it true alpha if you like. I don't, but you could do. It's just a wonderful car. Lots of things you can pick faults in it if you want to all day long. Absolutely, but that's not the point, is it? The point is it's got soul, it's got spirit, and it makes you feel more alive. So yeah, I do hope of the ones that 57 that are on the road, that they remain on the road and they're looked after. And come on, people, let's get some of those 304 and so on back on UK roads, because they are good to drive. They're also good to see being driven. And that is it for me this week, I think.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's it for me as well, as usual. There you go. My usual 110% contribution to the podcast.
That's it, Mr. 110%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So I might even give more. I don't know.
I don't know. It's ever generous.
Yeah.
We're back. We should be back next week unless we fall
really?
out. Yeah, unless we fall out. Unless we fall out again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you storm off in the huffer. Maybe it's my turn to storm off in the huff this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should storm off. But hopefully we're back next week with absolutely more of the same nonsense. But we'll try to put a different spin on some parts of it. Perhaps Mr. Ruppert will buy another Innocenti. Who knows?
Well, I might go and buy a Huff. So I can leave it a 2-litre 4-wheel drive Huff.
And on that note, cheerio, folks.
Yeah, cheerio, everybody.